Quotient Day Notes, Part 2. We're going to learn the rest of the derivatives. We already learned the derivative of the sine is cosine. The derivative of cosine is negative sine. The derivative of tangent is secant squared. The derivative of secant is secant times tangent. The derivative of the cosecant is negative cosecant times cotangent. And the derivative of the cotangent is negative cosecant squared. More to memorize. Learn them, know them. We do not give them to you. Okay? All right. We now have trig functions. These are product rule. Product rule is the first times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. You can try and simplify it if you remember your trig identities. The sine of x, this is 1 over the cosine squared of x, plus sine x over cosine x times cosine x. These disappear. And you can factor out a sine x, and you get, I'm going to put this back to secant squared x plus 1. But you don't have to. I would stop right here and call it a day. All right? Next one. It's a quotient rule. Low d high. It's negative sine of x, so I put my negative out front so it doesn't look like you're subtracting it, minus high d low all over low squared. Okay? If you want, you can distribute. You get negative sine x minus sine squared x minus cosine squared x. If you factor a negative 1 out of there, you'd have negative times the sine squared x plus cosine squared x. That's the big daddy. Sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to what? 1. So you have negative sine of x times negative 1, all divided by 1 plus sine of x squared. And that's really a positive sine x over 1 plus sine x squared. Again, do you have to do that? No, I just like trig and it's fun. Okay? All right. Using the quotient rule. Low d high minus high d low over low squared. You can pull that secant out if you want. Doesn't do you any good though. Okay, so you can stop, quit. All right? Next topic for tonight. They give you a chart. You've got f of x, its derivative, g of x, its derivative. And there's values for them. We don't know exactly what the function is, but we know. And they told us that h of x is the product of f and g. So what you do to find h prime first is the first times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. And then you fill in the values. And I write this out so that I don't forget anything. So I'm doing 2. F of 2 is 1. G prime of 2 is 6. G of 2 is 3. F prime of 2 is negative 2. If that's on your paper, I know you knew what yours are doing. You just can't add and subtract correctly. Okay? 6 minus 6 and you get 0. Okay? Let's do another one. Let's say h of x is defined as f of x divided by g of x. H prime is low d high minus high d low squared. And now plug in the values. Let's find h prime of 3. So I need g of 3, which is 4. F prime of 3 is 1. F of 3 is negative 3. G prime of 3 is 2. And g of 3 was 4. 4 squared is 16. So now I have 4 plus 6 over 16 is 10 over 16. 5 over 8. Okay? So always put this on your paper. All right? Show this expansion. And then show how you filled in the numbers. Because then if your algebra is wrong, I take off a point because you can't add and subtract. If only thing on your paper is this and not that, I would take off all points because you obviously didn't know what the quotient rule was. Okay? We can do the same thing with this chart here. Okay? You have F is the red one, G is the blue one. They want H of 7 given it's a product. G of X, F prime of X, first times the derivative of the second, second times the derivative of the first, and you read them right off the graph. Okay? You need to know the slope. First place, what's G of 7? 1, 2, 2, 4, 6, 7. What's G? Blue. G of 7 is 0. Well, that's nice. So F prime, let's do it anyway. F prime of 7, that's this one. We need the slope of that line, which looks like it's negative 1/2, plus F of 7, which is 1, 2, 3.5, which is 7/2. And G prime is the slope here. So what's my slope? Up 1 over 2, negative 2. So this is 0, plus negative 7 is negative 7. Okay? But you notice to find the derivatives, you needed the slope of the line. Count up 2 over 4, up 2 over 1. Okay, here's one more, asking us to find the quotient rule. Write it out. Low, D high, minus high, D low, over low squared. Fill them in. G of 3 is 4. F prime is 1. F of 3 is negative 3. G prime is 2. G is 4, so that's 16. Didn't we just do this one? 5 plus 6 over 16 gives me 11 over 16. Is the chart different? There you go. It's okay. Alrighty, last problem. They want you to find G prime at 1. Low, D high, minus high, D low, over low squared. And you plug in 1. So you get 2 minus 0 over 2 squared is 4. You get a half. Whoop, whoop. Okay, that's all there is for the lesson.